Freedom Reigns. This is Deatra. And you all know I don't do too many shows anymore, but we have a very, very special guest with us tonight. We have Mr. LB Bork with us, the author of The Red Amendment and the founder of PAC. Tonight I also have a special co-host with me, who you guys are somewhat familiar with, and that will be Lawrence Gilbert with the Regal Exchange. So welcome, Lawrence, and LB, are you there?
I think I'm here.
You are. Hello,
Ellen?
welcome.
Sometimes my equipment fails.
Well, welcome,
It's user fault, though.
Oh, okay.
Hello, LB.
No.
Hi, Lawrence. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Doing good.
Awesome. Well, you know, LB, I have been following PAC for pretty close to 3 years now and have read over your Red Amendment, and we've had several discussions, and, of course, you know, every Thursday we have a PAC education show, and anyways, you know, we have several people in the chat room who have also received and read or are reading the Red Amendment. And so I'm hoping that they will have some questions for you. But I was kind of wanting to find out from you, what exactly was it that brought you into the research that you have done?
I think originally, it was the Second Amendment issues. I wanted to know why people had to give up so many rights to own guns. It seemed like the Second Amendment, in layman's terms, basically was clear that the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, and I looked at it, every law that they had on guns as an infringement. So that's what really got me started. And then I found out most of the people in the movement, excuse my bluntness, got into this freedom movement back in the 90s because they didn't want to pay their income tax, which was greedy to me. Didn't have to do with natural rights. They were just not willing to pay their fair share. Of course, from there, we all know that after I had done the research, it was much deeper than that. But most of the good people think they're doing their patriotic duty by, paying their income taxes. Of course, I've learned a lot, in the last 20 years. So that's probably. I just look at it as there's deeper issues than that, So I came in from this at a different angle than most people. Is what I'm trying to get across.
Right, I understand. Well, like I said, I know there's people here in the chat room, but maybe you could also give us a little bit more, I know that you've been involved in a lot of things. I know that you've had to change a lot of your lifestyle and the way you live in order to live the life outside of the corporation, I guess, is the best way I can say it for our listeners. Now, maybe you could go into a little bit of that also.
I don't know what's really changed. I don't fill out government forms anymore, and I don't, I get to do what I want. I'm not 9 to 5 anymore. Don't have to worry about things, but of course, I back out the materialism a little bit, of course, too, because I don't make as much as I used to, which was all our hamster wheel game anyway, is because a lot of people are just spending every waking hour working and paying it out in, bank fees and things like that, taxes.
Right, I hear you.
So,
right.
I don't know. I'm a lot less stressed than I used to be. the thing that stresses me out lately are the people in this so-called movement.
Right. Yeah. What was
the government doesn't bother me. It's the people.
What was that, Lawrence? I heard you there in the background.
I was just commenting on LB's deal about the way it's just more and more the people on a wheel. It's just an ever increasing larger and larger spiral of as far as time-wise, speed. The increasing infringements, the increasing urgency to try to find money because it's becoming more and more scarce, less and less available. And, of course, there's reasons for that, which I won't go into, but I do totally agree with LB, yeah.
Right. LB, I know you said that the Second Amendment is what got you started on your search for knowledge and doing research and all. What specifically led you to the 14th in particular, since that is what the book is about that you've written?
It was a pretty long, not too long of venture. Basically, there were a lot of people like William Cooper. I don't know if any people know his name, but he wrote "Behold a Pale Horse."
Right.
And he came out with his book. I think it was 1992, and I knew of those people at that time. I did correspond with William Cooper back in the late 90s. When he started to get into law issues more so than he was earlier on in the 90s. But I guess what brought me to the 14th is a group I was with in Phoenix, Arizona in the early 90s. That's where I was then. And we were toying with the voting issue and trying to get back to what they call the qualified elector status. But, after I had done my research, I found out that it was pretty much a farce. And basically what we did back then is experiment and try to get registered with the voter registration board in Maricopa County, the county register, as state citizens. A lot of people might know that terminology, which I don't believe exists right now in the pre-14th Amendment form. They really don't exist. But the reason why is because back in 94 or when we got this done, I think it was like 95, I can't remember dates. And I still have the list of people that were on that list in my file cabinet. We did get registered as state citizens, but a month later, the Attorney General of Arizona came back and told the board that you had to be a citizen of the United States or a U.S. citizen to be registered. So that put an end to that. So that's, I guess, what got me interested in, experimenting or finding out more about the 14th Amendment at that time.
Right,
so that was even that mandatory way back then. Wow. Well,
it was, of course, it was, 100 years plus after the 14th Amendment was put in place. So, but, there's all kinds of, even back then the movement was still young to a point, but, we're talking 20 years, 30 years that the 14th Amendment was in place. And a lot of people say it was progressive. A lot of the things were progressive in what happened with it in law, but as far as I'm concerned, it happened the day they put it on the books. Everything did. They just toyed with it for a while, and of course it was a slow implementation of what they used.
Right. Everything. Right. Absolutely. Everything that's come since then, with detrimental results as far as liberty and freedom and the destruction of our rights and all these things. They're all founded in, they're progressive, like you said. They're founded and based upon that, the fact of what happened with the 14th. they're built upon it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they couldn't do what they've done without the 14th. People, talk about the 16th Amendment, which is the Income Tax Amendment, and, the Senator Amendment, which I believe is the 17th without looking, the ones that put the election of the senators from the state legislatures to the people, or citizens,
LB, you have a question in the chat room that asked if what the state attorney general had said. Was that what your big clue was?
Yeah, of course it was the starting point of where I started my thinking or doing research. It wasn't until like 4 years later until I wrote the book, or 5 years later. It took that long to do a lot of research and come to the understanding that the governments weren't lawful.
Right. And yeah, that question came from a person in the chat room who has just recently received his copy of the Red Amendment. And so he's just getting started on it. I think he received it about the beginning of last week.
Yeah, people have read it as many as 5 times, and they still find more information. So the first read-through is pretty, I don't know, you'll probably, I just had someone get a copy about a month ago that's in our Facebook group that said he had to put it down after 10 pages because his head was spinning.
No doubt. Well, I know for me, if I hadn't wasn't already aware of so much that's in your book, it would have been, mind-blowing for me. As it was, the additional things that I was not aware of that you brought out, specifics and details and facts that, it really rounded out what I had gathered on my own was just really amazing to me. And it was just a wonderful thing to see all that finally, the rest of the puzzles, the rest of the pieces of the puzzle that filled it all out. So, but
there's a lot of people that say they've known this and that, but the book puts everything together, even though they've learned some things, like you just said, Lawrence. But, a lot of people don't realize that PAC, a lot of the information out there in this movement right now, the proper information that's been tainted by a lot of groups has come from PAC. And we were the first ones to take the Matrix and put the real-life spin on it with deprogramming, which is deprogram.us website. That's been on the web for 12 years.
Wow. Speaking of that Matrix thing that you have up there on PAC, that just amazed me. That is so well done. It's so educational. If anybody wants to, it's interactive. It's like you're in there with it, learning, and it involves you. And it's just amazing to me. That is an amazing piece of work you put together there with that piece on the Matrix.
Oh yeah,
I love that.
Is. Hey, LB, real quick, sorry to interrupt here, but a couple more comments from the chat room. One of our listeners says that he has spoken with you once on the phone, and he forgot to tell you thank you for finding all of this and putting it into an understandable form.
And I try. A lot of people still don't understand it, which is unfortunate. I think the ones that don't want to, They're afraid of it.
Okay. Right, I hear you.
I'm sorry. I cut you off. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Go ahead.
No, you weren't finished. I'm done.
Okay. And now we have another comment or question from the chat room. It says, okay, he says, I want to just cut to the chase. Do U.S. citizens have any rights at all? He says, I hate to be blunt or, but LB makes so few talking engagements that he really wants to pick his brain about it.
Well, U.S. citizens have the rights that the government gives them or lets them have.
Right.
It's hard to access natural rights with being in this system.
Right. It's pretty much all privileges. It's not real rights.
Yeah. Yeah, they call
Right.
rights privilege or privileges rights, which, when I was in my own case back in 95, 94, 95, around that time frame. And, I was just learning with this group down there, and after I got interested, in the early 90s, like 92, in the Second Amendment issues, it blossomed pretty quick from there. Working with this group, and I'm lucky I ran into him because I had my own case that I had to handle. It was, criminal. And, the judges just jerked around, and I was just agreeing at that time. And, we were learning about counsel compared to attorneys or, assistants at counsel based on constitutional principles as compared to bar attorneys. And, the judge told me one day, well, we use those words interchangeably. So they use a lot of words interchangeably, which to cause deception. But the terms in law are all different. And it's, I've learned a lot about the context in which they're used. That's how I figured out Section 2 of the 14th Amendment.
Absolutely.
Being a crime to vote. And the words, the historians really messed up. They were thinking that the Section 2 of the 14th Amendment was just an extension of which is one of the Reconstruction Amendments. They were taking the Reconstruction Acts, which had similar language in it, but they changed it just ever so slightly, just so it was deceptive. So you have to look at the way things are, the context they're used in before you can make a determination of what they're really saying. Yeah, that happens a lot. They're very deceptive in what they do.
We have another comment here. I'm going to read it to you. It says, I have a question regarding the except for participation in rebellion or other crime phrase in Section 2 of the 14th Amendment. Then she goes on to say, from my interpretation, grammatical analysis, it seems to me that phrase is a loophole that prevents any reduction in the basis of representation when voting rights are denied in the case of participation in rebellion. And then she goes on, in my opinion, strictly in terms of Section 2 alone, the rebellion phrase does not imply that voting is a crime. Rather, it provides a loophole for preventing loss in representation, which I admit is totally bizarre. It should be noted.
Of course.
Right. Well, she goes on. She says it should be noted that the first part of the second sentence in Section 2 is a subordinate dependent clause, not a main or independent clause, while the part starting with the basis of representation is the main clause in that sentence.
We had it sentence diagram by some grammarian. It's available on the internet by under the historical error. If you look up PAC historical error, there's a diagram sentence that says just what she said. And yeah, if you're denied the right to vote, you can't vote. You're not represented. But that's the same outcome as what we're saying. The extraneous language in there does say it is a crime to vote. But the final outcome is that if you're denied the right to vote, you're not represented, which is the same outcome.
Okay.
So
yeah. Go ahead.
If you can't vote, how can you be represented? That's the whole thing. You don't want to vote because they represent you, and you do.
Exactly. exactly. I know for myself, I rescinded my registration a few years ago. I actually had done it by total accident. I didn't even realize I had done. I was just so pissed off and fed up that I just said, forget it. I don't want any part of this. And I just went in and I did the rescinding paperwork and took myself out on that. Okay.
I don't know. Is she in agreement with that? Because I've gone through this with many people over the years, and the guy that helped get that diagram done was a electrical engineer, and
right.
3 people worked on the diagramming sentencing sentence, the sentence diagram, which is very complex.
Right.
And the 3 people that worked on it said the same thing, about this is very strange, the language that was in it. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, she said she agrees.
Deceptive.
Well, she agrees with you, and she said her interpretation does not change her message whatsoever. And so, she's just letting you know she agrees with you. Now we got
download
question.
a historical error and look at the diagram. She'll
right.
probably see what they had done with that.
Right. Now another person says, don't we just give up our vote by proxy to D.C.? That is not really representation.
What was the question?
Don't we just give up our vote by proxy to D.C.?
Give up what? Votes?
Our votes, yeah. I think basically he might be asking similar. I could be wrong, and I hope he'll correct me if I am. But for instance, in the military, just recently talking to a young man who found out that a bunch of his higher commanding officers had been demoted and or booted out of the military because of the fact that they refused to follow orders, not allowing our soldiers to vote. And then this young man was told this voting year that if he did not vote, that his vote would just be given up to, and whoever the popular person or the incumbent is, his vote would automatically go to that person. So I guess what this person is asking is, okay, no, not at all. That wasn't it. Okay, it's been restated, I guess. It says, no, not at all. We vote against the Union, the Republic, and at best, we only vote for the Electoral College, whoever that might be.
You're talking about presidential election?
I think they're talking about, they're talking mostly about presidential, I do believe.
Well, the electoral votes, in my opinion, even before the 14th Amendment, the president's always elected by the qualified or the Electoral College. So the whole thing's a sham anyway. No, the popular vote doesn't elect the president. It's all just dog and pony show.
Right, right. That's kind of how I see it, too.
With the 14th Amendment, that's why they want that, what's the word? I can't think of it. I got it in the book, and I'm drawing a blank. They want people voting for the president just to get them registered to vote, to participate in this rebellion created by the 14th Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
So
this person is
demagogue. That's it. The president acts as a demagogue, which is someone that says things that the people like and get them to, he appeals to their wants and needs and gets them to do things that they want. So that's what the presidential election's all about. They're just acting as a demagogue to get them to register to vote.
Right.
And that all started. I understand that the first Lincoln election, they whipped people up into a frenzy to get them to register to vote for Lincoln, and it's been that way ever since. But before Lincoln came around, very few people in the United States were voting because, but basically, if you go back to the Bible, we're not supposed to let people represent us. We're supposed to represent ourselves, And even in court actions, we should be representing ourselves, not letting lawyers do it. And, I pretty much boiled it down that this whole system, even prior to the 14th Amendment, is, people that wanted favors from the state or, people in commerce are the ones that wanted to elect these state representatives. They wanted favors from the state. Or the federal representatives were dealing in commerce. And basically, people like the Amish, for example, using them as an example, they have nothing to do with that. They could care less about all that. We should care less about all that. This whole voting thing's been this so-called democracy, they call it. Just getting people to participate, and all it is a scam to get you to consent to being governed by these people so they can write laws against you. That's what it's always been like, and it was before the 14th Amendment was put in place. People kind of knew this, I think. They just lived down their agrarian farms and did their own thing and could care less about what the state was providing them because there was no socialism back then.
Right.
And, the only people that were really interested in the government, the only people that were interested in government is wanting favors for commerce, interstate commerce, not intrastate so much even.
Most
so
of the government,
the whole 14th Amendment system is based on Marxism or socialism and favors from the state. So anyone that's voting right now is wanting the government to take care of them, and that's what they do.
Now, Lawrence, what was your comment or your question?
I was just say that most of, from what I've seen and read, most of the government was taken care of at the local level. That's where most people were involved with, because that was the epitome of the exercise of what was established with the Constitution, was right down at the local level to a great degree.
Right.
And most people, from what I agree, most people didn't go beyond that,
Right.
They've got everyone sucked into this demagoguery system and socialism, so everyone thinks they
it's primarily a dual party deal, It's you against me and me against you, and this keeps people at odds all the time and separated. And then they build up all this stuff. They're both headed in the same direction, just going about it different ways, and this divides people and keeps people at odds all the time. It's perfect way to keep people from ever getting together.
Yeah, I wrote a paper called Republic versus Democracy and go over some things, and when the Constitution was first put in place, they had the Federalist Party. And as far as I'm concerned, they used the divide and conquer methods of the different parties coming up over the years. Of course, it's changed a lot in the last 200 years, but Federalist Party was the first party, and as far as I'm concerned, the Republican Democrats are the Federalist Party, but they're using the divide and conquer thing with the Republican Democratic Party right now. But it's all federalism. The people that put the Constitution together, they wanted this federalism to begin with. I believe that they couldn't do something as radical, let's call it that, as radical as the 14th Amendment proposed when they first installed the Constitution, because people wouldn't have bought it. But I really think that they had it on the drafting table even before the ink was dry on the Constitution, meaning the 14th Amendment. They wanted that done. They couldn't get it done at that time, so it took them about 80 years to get it done. And they sent the Illuminati over here. Karl Marx was involved. There's a letter even that was written to Lincoln congratulating him for freeing the slaves, which from Karl Marx. So.
Right. Okay, you got a couple more questions. Now, one of them I kind of answered.
Which the slaves were just used as a tool to implement this Marxist system under the 14th Amendment.
Right. Well, you got more questions here from the chat room, LB. One I kind of answered based on more recent interviews that I have held with Amish people, people from the Amish communities. One person asked, is it true the Amish are not U.S. citizens? And I do believe at the time of your publications that was true. But according to the people that I have interviewed more recently, they're telling now that they are being forced to get birth certificates and Social Security cards.
Those are all, you see, the 14th Amendment's clear in its language. It says every, person, which they're going to claim you're going to be that anyway, based on their presumptions, born or naturalized in the United States, meaning that several states are U.S. citizens at birth. And this is part of that gray area that the 14th Amendment creates that I really get upset with people. The past, 12 years I've been trying to get, PAC moving or state national society going, that there's a lot of people that like to play in this gray area that you just kind of brought up with the Amish people.
Right.
Yeah, they might been able to get away with not getting birth certificates and things like that, but they were still U.S. citizens according to what the 14th Amendment portrays or, puts on people.
Right. Okay, now another question. This is going back to the voting. It says, was there a change in how the voting was done pre-14th Amendment and now with it being secret?
Could you repeat that? My mind was wandering. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Person's asking, was there a change in how the voting was done pre-14th Amendment and now with it being secret?
Oh, you mean the secret ballot?
Yeah, he's basically
Is that what they're
asking,
talking about?
was there a change in how the voting was done before the 14th Amendment and now with it being secret?
I have not done the total research on that. They talked about the secret ballot, and it's been secret since then. I really believe that it stems from that it's a crime, and they really don't want to know if you're voting or not. But that was back. I'm sure that. I'm thinking they didn't have people registered like they do today. Of course, it's open that you register. I don't know how they held elections back during the Civil War time period, but I don't know why or what they did prior to that, to be honest.
Right.
I know they went to the secret ballot, during the war or, with Reconstruction.
Right.
I've been hoping that this movement, and, I try not to, I've been told to say, well, there is no movement because everything's disorganized or everyone's going in different directions. But, I had hoped to get research groups in all the states 10 years ago together, but it's been a nightmare because there's been so many, distractors out there and plants that have been put in place disrupting things. And the Internet's been a real bear, too. Everyone and their brother has a website, so it just divides everyone up.
It does. It really does. That's why I've been trying to use Freedom Reigns to blanket a lot of different things together. But anyways, let's see. Here's another question. Some persons claim that knowledge of trust law and equity is imperative if one is to obtain effective remedy. What do you think, LB?
I don't know. Equity. That stems from the British system, the courts of chancery, but equity and common law are two different things. As far as knowing equity law, it's something that's nimble. It really, it's nothing solid. Equity is a decision by a court. That's
right.
going to be nimble. So yeah, there's that study of law, and then there's common law that's different faceted. I mean, technically, there's common law maxims that have been around for thousands of years, and basically it's just common sense.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it stems from the Bible. So if you look at the Bible, there's a lot of common law type maxims from the Bible. Of course, there's different facets of common law, and it's a real deep study. I haven't seen a total study on, any particular. There's pleadings and practices, which Westlaw even had a book out as late as 1967, and that's they're trying to bury common law practices totally. I mean, there's a lot of writs and things that are still available, but they're converting them to more of the civil law system. So it's being destroyed, and every year that goes by, or every month or minute that goes by, that people aren't acting together to make sure that that law form stays alive, which it is. It protects our rights more than the civil law, which has been in place since there's a letter from a doctor or to a doctor from Thomas Jefferson, and he wasn't even aware of how bad the civil law had infiltrated the United States, even during the Constitution, but even the Articles of Confederation and the Law of Nations that Vattel put together is all constructed on the base of Roman civil law. And I don't think a lot of the founding fathers knew law that much. And it's unfortunate because there's still a lot of people, lawyers don't even know law. I had one dumb attorney,
kidding,
right? I didn't realize what they did here in the United States because it's all cryptic of what they've done until I read a book on Roman civil law by a German law professor named Sohm. Institutes of Roman Law is the book he wrote. And after I read that book, I knew exactly what they did here. And some attorneys say that, well, that's written by a German law professor. That doesn't apply here. And I'm going, are you really that stupid?
Yeah, really. I hear you.
They are. These attorneys and lawyers, and they're not that bright. I mean, they've been told what to think. They've paid a lot of money. They've been been told what to think. Sorry, I can't even talk here. So yeah, it's really pathetic what's happened. I saw some guy that's praised in the movement the other day, and he's rewriting the Constitution. I go, great, a guy that doesn't know law is writing the Constitution now.
I know. I ran across that also. And going on that, hey, LB, I've got to ask you your opinion. I know this is a little off subject, but it kind of goes along with this link that somebody posted, and I've already had it sent to me at least 24 times in email. About the petitions and how now supposedly since these petitions from the states have gained so much attention that we're now supposed to declare ourselves as free sovereign states and the people are all free and yada, yada, yada. So I would love your thoughts and opinions on that.
It's all a bunch of nonsense because like after I, did years of study, I determined what needed to be done and what could be done. I've been telling people basically, you want to impress me, stop sending representatives to Washington, in Congress. That would stir something up, and you're not going to, people aren't going to do that. And basically PAC has always been about each individual can get out of the system. They've left that remedy for us. We don't have to participate in the rebellion that the 14th Amendment creates. The political rebellion, nor do we have to be in its servitude under their laws. So you can get out of it, but each individual has to do it. And I think if enough people did it, it could create a 100th monkey effect, or the principle when enough monkeys get out, and start doing something, it would catch on. But until then, for example, what's the governor's name in Texas? Even though they had 100,000 signatures, I think, he says, well, I'm not participating in this. So they still have this government that's subject to the 14th Amendment and the Constitution that's not going to play ball with them. So it's all worthless. It's all worthless.
Well, that's my thought.
And another thing is, a state or the people of the state of Texas, for example, you don't ask permission from the government. You just do it. And we know what happened the last time they did that. There was a war, but that was all planned too. I firmly believe that the Civil War was planned so they could implement the 14th Amendment or the Reconstruction Amendments.
Well, I think we already
United
know it
States
was.
or the Illuminati planned all that.
Absolutely.
Hey,
one of the telling things is, the Confederates were so against the North, but yet if you look at the Confederate Constitution, it was a mirror image of the federal, the Constitution of the United States, which if they had such a problem with the United States, why'd they copy it exactly? So the same people that put the Confederate, forces or the Confederacy together were the same guys that designed the United States Constitution.
Right.
It's all a scam. So it's all been run by the Jesuit order since day one, even under the Articles of Confederation.
Right.
But that's a whole other story.
It is. I've got somebody has a question has asked me if I would ask you, are you able to get a flight overseas or across the border to Canada with your state national ID?
Yeah, there's ways around that, but I don't disclose those things.
Okay. All right. Well, that was the question, and so
we write our own passports using treaty law.
Okay.
And that's all I'll say on that. I don't disclose our trade secrets because it's all I've regretted putting the information out I have because it's just been stolen by a bunch of greedy people and used and screwed up. And if I was to do it over, I wouldn't put the PAC websites up even.
Right.
I wouldn't have, rather. I would have had to recruit people that were interested and kept it more secret because it's just created, the adversary has taken the information. One of the sites that is a different disinformation site is that Family Guardian site. They took some of my information and twisted it around, and they put disinformation into it. So
okay.
Really
I hear you. Somebody else here in the chat room has asked another question. What does LB think about what he thinks is going to happen with wars in the economy?
The wars?
Wars in the economy.
Or the economy?
Both.
Both.
I see Alex Jones. I think Ron Paul, who I don't trust. I think he's working for the Vatican. I think the Jesuit order. You can see Alex Jones and those guys trying to stir things up. I think they want to create another either revolutionary war or civil war. And the outcome would be a new constitution. And we can't let them do that. And the lack of unity will allow them to do that. So
Lawrence,
that's what they're gearing up for right now, and it's
I
a
totally
just
agree,
order. So you know, we got to work fast. I've been working people on Facebook, and we're getting about 8 people a day coming to the PAC group there, and I'm getting like
awesome.
2 or 3 friends, 4 friends a day coming to me for the information I'm putting out. And a woman said to me, well, now that you've exposed this, they know what we know. And I go, yeah, well, that's good, because it's going to cause them to either change their plans or, you know, they're not going to get away with it. But the only way that they're not going to get away with it is we start unifying and spreading the message together.
Right.
And they've done a great job on dividing PAC up for 10 years now. And, you know, it's got to stop.
Well, it's not just PAC, though, that they're dividing. I mean, you look at all the different religions that are dividing us. You look at the different financial classes. You know,
that's all the Jesuit order. They've done all this.
Everything we do. Yeah, everything that we do is, I mean, look at all the racism that went on through the campaigns. That was all meant to divide us.
Yep.
You know. And you're right. We do need to all stand together. We do need to find our common ground, and we need to unite. And, you know, that's the whole purpose of Freedom Reigns, is uniting and, you know, having that common ground. And, you know, that's why I do stand behind the teachings of PAC in regards to the 14th and what it's done and so on and so forth. Now, Lawrence, did you have anything else you wanted to add in there?
No, I just, I totally agree with LB. I mean, we're heading into some uncharted territory here for sure. And only the people that are orchestrating things behind the scenes really know through a number of options. For sure, they, you know, plans and plan A's and B's and C's, depending on the instant and the moment, as to what they're going to do. I think one thing that is absolutely sure is that, as regards their major plans, which I followed for many years myself too, and is part of how I came to see, you know, to begin my work with the money as being the root of this thing, the root of the power, in other words. But the thing, the big thing is that they do intend to divide the world up, get rid of all sovereign countries, governments, nations, all these things, and bring that all of that into one super controlled system of subdivisions. And they're very close to having the ability to finalize this, and they're I expect, and this is just my opinion, of course, and that's all this is, so don't nobody go saying, well, it's going to be this or going to be that, because nobody knows. But it is my opinion that unless the people do unite and do come together and do begin to look at what they can do and where their power really lies, they're going. The powers that be, as they're called, are going to be successful. They're very close, and they use psychology against us. They have perfected this. They know better what we think than we know ourselves what we think, and they know how to manipulate and control. They'll divide and conquer, Hegelian dialectic. All these things are extremely perfected and organized, and they've been doing this for 200-300 years. And so unless we change things, we can't do it by fighting them so much. That's just a negative thing. The only way we're going to change things is decide to take personal responsibility over ourselves, look at what we have in common, discern and ascertain what we can do, and create what we want to create. And this is what I've told people for years and years, and this is why, I won't get into that, but it's why my research was always as to not only what the problem is, but where their main power lies, and what we can do about it. And that's what led me to Mr. E.C. Regal's works and ascertaining that the money power, the power to issue and control money is a major factor, if not the major factor. So we've got to all get together. We've got to come to understand what real law is, where they have really gradually, and in the major things like the 14th, where they've done things, where we stand within the system and without, and what we can do about it. And we don't have very long to do something. We just don't.
No, we don't. No, we don't. Another question in the chat room. Oh, go ahead, Lawrence, and then I've got another question.
No, that's fine. I'm done here.
Oh, okay. All right. The person is asking, how does international law tie into all of this? The person is asking because, in their opinion, the U.S. is an international body.
Of course it is.
So he's asking, where does international law tie into all of this?
Into what part of it?
Yeah, I'm guessing all of it.
The Constitution is fabricated on international law. It's a federation. Vattel talked about it in the Law of Nations about it being a federation republic, and there's a lot of federations. Mexico, rather, is a federation. Each state is a country, state nation. I was watching, speaking of how this works, I was watching Outlaw Josie Wales this last week, and people that have seen that know it was kind of like a post-Civil War situation. And they talked about the Indian nations in the movie, which I thought was interesting. There's a lot of factual law statements that are made in the movie. And the Indians were saying they took us from our tribes and put us in the nations. Well, what they did is, use the Roman civil law system, which has been around for thousands of years, and basically took them out of their law form and stuck them in these Indian nations. So, the whole Constitution and the way it's constructed is grounded in international law. And each state is a nation, like the Indian tribes are, converted into nations in the same law form. So I don't know what the question's about. Each state has the right to get out of the Union, but I don't recommend that at this point, because if one did get out of the Union right now, the same thing would happen to it as what happened during the Civil War. And even with the United States resisting the New World Order, if we were to get free from it, they'd have China and Russia on our hind ends in a heartbeat.
Right.
So this is a worldwide thing. And I figured this out.
It is a worldwide thing. Yes, it is. It is a worldwide thing. I'm really, really pleased to hear you say that, LB.
The only way we can do this is keep educating. That's been PAC's job for 12 years plus now. Our job is to educate as many people as we can and get the people out of the system that want to get out right now and lead by example. And hopefully, other people will learn and follow. That's been my plan for 12 years, and it hasn't veered from that. And I still believe in that. And now, like I just said, it's worldwide. We've got to educate other people so we don't have them, their countries on our tails. They resist. And, how to get that done is we got to all start working together. Okay.
Anyways, welcome back. Yes, welcome back, everybody. This is Freedom Reigns. I am your host, Deatra. Have my co-host, Lawrence Gilbert. Most of y'all know him with the Regal Exchange. And our very special guest tonight and tomorrow night, Mr. LB Bork. So, LB, I'm going to let you go ahead and pick up wherever you want to at this point, because there's, like I said, there's quite a few people here in the chat room that are in the process of reading the Red Amendments, and actually we even have a couple of our other hosts as well as their guests that are listening in. So I'll let you just kind of take it away.
I don't know what else to say. No. Where'd we leave
Come
off?
on. I know better than that. I know better than that. Oh, my goodness.
I've been, I keep telling people that I got a book. I'm kind of scattered right here. Of course, I started studying law, 20 years ago, and didn't really get into the secret society stuff, and I never really did very deeply. But since I've been on Facebook the last few months, I've been hitting that stuff pretty hard. The first page of the Red Amendment, first paragraph, I start almost hammering on the secret society issue. And just to get it out of the way, because it's very important to know who your adversary is. But in another way, they control us by law. So, the players of who's doing this to us are very important, but knowing their rules and how they handle us, control us, is more important, I think. And that's why, I got it out of the way, the first couple pages of the Red Amendment. Of course, I revisit some of the finer details later in the book, but the book does center on the law. And that's most important for people to understand, and that's what most people don't even want to touch with a 10-foot pole. We've been trained not to want to know it. And some of the people that do control us like to flaunt these things in front of us. I don't know if anyone saw the brothers that do the movies. They redid Rooster Cogburn. Trying to think of their names. They did Fargo. No Country for Old Men. If anyone wants to help me with that. But anyway, in the Rooster Cogburn movie they redid with, it was an old John Wayne movie. There was a girl in the latest version. I don't remember in the original version, but she knew law pretty well. She defended herself. And, of course, the movie took place just after the Civil War. I'm thinking a lot of people during that time period or that era knew law a lot more than we do today. They've taken it away from us. And I tell people, why do you think they don't teach this stuff in school? I mean, if I was teaching, my kids homeschooling them, I would make them study the common law maxims. And you could make it fun, They don't want us to know this stuff for a reason. And the reason is to control us. It's a no-brainer. So, back to what I was saying, the players are important. You got to know who your adversary is and what they're about, but the most important thing is their game, and the game is law, and they don't want you to know that. So that's how important it is, I think. Of course, as Lawrence has discovered, the money is the main issue. I don't really center on that in the Red Amendment, but I do go into those issues. Matter of fact, the closing page is a quote by, I think it was one of the Federal Reserve's minions.
Right.
I said that, that it was made in the 70s, and I don't have it in front of me. If someone's got the book handy, they can look on the last page.
Yeah, I don't.
But they said that Americans' way of living is going to decline. You can't escape that. So the money is how they control everyone, and we got to get away from that, as Lawrence talks about or understands. But the law is important, and it seems like everyone wants to ignore that. You got all these
Absolutely.
preppers prepping and all this, but yet I have friends out in Oregon that have, he's one guy that used to be with the Bob Schultz organization, We the People,
right.
which is now pretty much defunct because they got shot down. And Bob Schultz wouldn't listen to people like me, like most of these groups don't. But he's got friends out there that are being arrested or put in jail for Agenda 21 issues already,
right,
for collecting rainwater. So these people that are prepping, people that are growing gardens that are getting arrested and troubled by the government. So, but no one knows law. They don't care about it. So, and I know people that are getting their gold taken from them. I've heard these stories. I haven't talked directly to the people, but I know people that know these people that have gotten their gold taken already. They're going to start doing that. So if you're one of these U.S. citizens and in their system and represented by them, all these laws apply to you. So, it's very unbelievable that everyone wants to ignore the most important thing that controls them.
Right.
Don't come
LB,
and take your food away from you. All
LB,
these preppers that are prepping, they're going to find out they're, not working together, and they're going to be hammered eventually here pretty quick.
Right. Well, LB, we've got two callers on the line. I'm going to bring in Jose first. Jose, your mic is open.
Hi, Deatra.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. Hello, LB.
Hi.
LB, the thing that I wanted, in reading the TRA, I found something kind of fascinating. On one of your footnotes here, it says you were at breakfast with a colleague one morning, a legal colleague.
Yeah.
And you spoke to your waitress, and she stated that our Constitution was praised in the classes she had taken overseas, which I'm assuming were kind of college-level classes.
Right.
And did she expound on any of that?
Not really. It was a quick discussion, and I can't even remember what country she was from. I think it might have been Russia. That happened like 18 years ago. I can't remember the details, but it was, an actual discussion that did happen. And the lawyers aren't even taught constitutional law here. They go to law school.
Yeah.
They're taught procedures and things. So, people are pretty ignorant in the United States about how the Constitution really operates. And,
that is true.
The liberals, how they just think it's evil and outdated and whatever else you want to say, which, I'm not a fan of the Constitution anyway, because it was written basically by Alexander Hamilton, who worked for the world's bankers, So it's flawed from the get-go, but it's a lot better without the 14th Amendment. And it would work. I've been telling people even lately that this system, even under the 14th Amendment, would be acceptable if people knew who they were and if they knew the law, but they don't. So it's just a nightmare.
Right. Right.
Yep.
I'm not condoning the 14th Amendment. I'm just saying that it wouldn't be as bad if these guys wouldn't play dirty, which they are.
Right.
So.
On that note, Jose and LB and everybody, I want to go ahead and bring another caller in. He's frequented on other shows that I unfortunately don't get to listen to very much. But that would be Peter. Peter, are you there? Peter? Okay, I'm guessing we're not hearing from Peter.
Peter went home.
He might have. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and leave his mic open, and I actually have him on Skype, so, yes.
Hi, hon. It's me. Yeah, he's there. I'm not sure what's going on. 'Cause I've been texting. He's typing right now. Peter, your mic is hot, my friend. So I'm not sure what's going on here. I just jumped in to let you know that. So yeah, I'll jump in a little bit. I have a few questions.
Okay, well, go ahead, Peter. Peter, or was that Jose? That was Jose, right?
No.
No, that's Peter talking right now. I can't tell you two apart right at the moment. Okay, Peter, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mute you out. Tag me on Skype. Let me know when you're ready. And, okay, we have another call that just jumped in, and this is another host here on Freedom Reigns. Kate, well, you just muted out, my dear. I'm going to open you back up.
Yeah, because that was me talking to you, hon. That wasn't Peter.
Oh, okay. It sounded like Peter. Sorry.
I know.
Okay.
We're starting to sound a bit alike. I know he got redirected.
Yeah. I've got three callers here, Peter, you, and Jose, and on my end, y'all are sounding alike.
Well, okay. Anyway, Peter, he just tagged me, got redirected.
Yep, I saw that. It's all right. He can tag me when he's ready for me to open him up. So
okay.
You said you had a couple questions?
Oh, yeah, I was just listening in a bit. I just want to get up to speed on where LB was at. And, again, one of the things, and it goes far beyond Roman law, it goes beyond Phoenician law, et cetera, et cetera. One of the things a lot of people overlook is how the natural law, divine law, works in relation to all man's laws are mimics of the as above, so below. And you get so many people complaining about how this is happening and that's happening, and they never take the responsibility upon their own shoulders as to their own ignorance in getting educated. And you're right, people need to get educated, but again, it's that old dragging a horse to water, and not you can try to force it to drink, but you're going to end up drowning it, and it doesn't even know it's thirsty. That's a problem that I used to run into, not so much anymore. But Peter has definitely got some stuff for you as soon as we can get him. I'll make his mic hot, Deatra, because I know he wanted to redirect people to Freedom Reigns right now because he had sent out an email. So I know that's what he was doing.
All right, awesome. And Kate and Jose LB will be with us again tomorrow night.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So any questions that we can't get in tonight, we'll get in tomorrow night.
Yeah. And something one of the questions that was asked earlier about regarding the Constitution or the U.S. being international, et cetera. When people actually take the time to sit down and maybe go through Law of Nations and maybe read it, it's a big read, but it'll give you a better idea because Law of Nations is based on natural law, and when you can start seeing the layers for what they are, that's when you start awakening. It's like what you were saying, LB, about using treaty as far as traveling and stuff like that. I had my own interactions with the British High Consulate, being from the UK and traveling on my terms, and it really that's what it boiled down to was a condition of treaty. And we try to get this information out, but one of the things, and I'm sure you're well aware of it, a lot of people are too busy caught up in their own egos and greed, and I want this and I want that, and they don't take enough time to understand what it is they're asking for and why, so no, I totally get it.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't disagree with anything you said. Yeah, I'm into natural law, but you got to know the enemy, as you probably understand. So that's why
I am the enemy.
You need to know some of these things of how they operate.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's still a process. I was hoping to have crack teams of researchers in each of the states, like I said 10 years ago, but the adversary and egos, like you just mentioned, have kept everyone apart.
Wow. Hey, LB, it looks like Peter is back. Peter, can you hear us?
I can hear you fine. I don't know what the hell y'all talking about because I've been out of the loop for a bit.
Well, we've talked about a lot of different things. I know that you had stated earlier you had some questions that you wanted to ask LB.
Sure. Hey, LB, this is Peter. How you doing, brother?
Pretty good. How are you? Thanks for not calling me bro. I hate that.
I call you brother. Brother.
Yeah,
brother
brother's
is,
fine. Don't call me bro.
We're all brothers, you know. Yeah,
I know.
Yeah,
I
the
just
bro.
don't like
the bro thing's for the other side of the coin.
Yeah.
Anyways,
like that.
yeah, right. Anyways, I was just wondering, are you familiar with the what goes on in the courts behind closed doors with all these bonds?
No, a little bit. It doesn't really interest me because my goal has been to stay out of the courts totally.
Oh yeah.
No,
we
everything
agree with
they do is under private law, and it's all unconscionable, But like I said, it's good to know those things, but that's not been my goal, and I really don't think that it's worth even entertaining. That's not been my goal, so.
Yeah, well,
same as same as there's a lot of. I really think all that stuff's been a side disinformation program by the redemption people to keep people in the system. This.
Oh no, we don't do bonds, brother.
Basically.
Yeah, we don't do bonds. I don't tell nobody to do bonds. I tell them to bring theirs forward, though.
Well, yeah, you can do that, but I'm telling you, most of our people are left alone because of our status. They don't bother.
Right. Oh yes, status is a good thing.
That's been my goal, to be left alone.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Yeah, we want to be left alone. The problem is they just can't leave you alone because they want to create banana eating on Tuesdays and Thursdays and bond you for the action.
Yeah, well, not if your status is proper. They don't have jurisdiction over you. So that's been my goal, and it's pretty much worked. And I can't, because of all these sidetracks that people want to bring into the equation, it's distracted everyone, and I can't get anywhere. There's a group in New York that I work with that I gave a seminar to, or went to do a seminar to with over 10 years ago, and none of the people did the process. And as far as I'm concerned, they're detrimental to the movement because they're working the gray area that the 14th Amendment provides, and it's a black hole of what they have available to them in way of the legal system. And there's no line in the sand drawn. My goal is to draw a line in the sand, and I can't get that done with all these people wanting to play games with them.
Yeah, I don't believe in playing games. I believe in cutting to the chase. I believe get them in the box. Like I say, it all started with the birth certificate bond. That's how they're drafting everybody for force. You're a 14th Amendment U.S. citizen slave on the plantation until you remove the presumption.
Well, that's what we did. I've been doing it for 12 years. I've been out for 12 years now. Right.
And what do you do to administrate process? To remove all the presumptions.
That's all in my book.
Oh, okay.
And
I didn't get the memo, so perhaps maybe that can get forwarded to me by the close of the show, or maybe you can give me some direction.
Like I said, I don't know where you started learning from, but I've been at this 12 years plus with PAC, and there's been a lot of disinformation programs put out there that sidetrack people, and you got caught up in them.
Oh, really? Oh. So you're going to tell me what time it is. That's good. All right. Hey, Kate, I'll catch you later. I'm going to roll.
Okay. All right. Jose, did you have more questions?
I just wanted to say thank you, LB. I couldn't have said that any better than what you just did. Yes, status is absolutely everything.
Guys, I'm gonna jump off the call here. I really wish you'd given Peter 30 seconds to talk, because there's a lot of stuff that LB you don't know, and I've been at this longer than what you're saying you've been at it, and I'm already out, have been, and I don't have to deal with stuff. So what I will ask next time, there's some information we know that you could have to give to the average layman, but you don't want to hear it. So I might join in tomorrow night. In the meantime, I'll pass some stuff to Deatra to get to you. And if you can read it before tomorrow night, you might want to listen to what Peter has to say. There's no one I've ever met that knows the system inside out and backwards like he does, and he goes at it with a pure heart. So anyway, that's all I'm going to say. You guys have a great night. Much love.
All right. Bye-bye, Kate. Okay, Jose?
Yeah.
You have more questions, hon?
Well, no, I have a small comment. I was having a fairly heated discussion with somebody on YouTube.
Uh-huh.
And it was one of those Russo followers, somebody that tends to follow the UCC side of getting out of the system and all that kind of stuff. And the more they suggested, the more what I did was, research into what they were saying. And it started not making any sense to me because it sounded more like contracting further into the system than
That's all the
getting
commercial
out.
law stuff's about, right? That's why I just said what I did to those guys, and I have no idea who just went on that rant and said he's been doing this longer.
Right.
Any one time someone tells me that, I say, prove it. But
I think
the whole the commercial law system is basically a trap that they want everyone involved in. And like my mentor who didn't even quite get things, Carl Granzi, who's been at this quite a while, since the 80s, was one of the people that taught me. He says constitutional law is your root law and the foundational law, so everything stems from that. And then, of course, it goes into international law. The only way a constitution can exist internally is from external law, which is international law. So.
Right. Okay.
I think the gentleman that was just talking there, I'm sorry,
Jose.
I'm not
That's
good
Jose.
at names. Jose, yes, Jose. I think you just said one of the magic words that hasn't really been brought up much tonight, and it's integral with so much of your research and the very thing that you brought forward, LB, and that is contract. They themselves tell us where there is no contract, there is no law. Everything short of sitting in a cave by yourself all your life, any interaction with human beings and your fellow man is all about contract. Even our talking together is a form of verbal contract. Everything is contract. And it's through contracts, hidden contracts, and they perverted that, of course, as you can, I'm sure, say a lot more on, that they have gotten us. And this 14th Amendment was like an ultimate offer of contract that was accepted.
There's one
no
maxim.
one refuted it.
The one maxim that's that's the problem. They rely on silence as acceptance maxim.
Sure.
The contract makes the law is another maxim that's very important. I mean, you make a contract, that is the law. It's
and
not hurting other parties or your societal law, which would be the Constitution you're restricted to. You can supersede anything just about.
Right. And this whole thing that you brought forward is hinges, so much of it at least, hinges upon recognition of contract and negating the contracts lawfully and properly. And this isn't about fighting them. It's about determining what you want and clarifying that and documenting it properly so that these hidden contracts are negated. One of the best works on this that I've ever read was George Mercier's, or however you say his last name, book on hidden contracts. And it's pretty heavy-duty piece of work. And I read that back in the late 90s and 99, 2000, somewhere in there. And it's the history behind that. But, it goes into great detail about all of the contracts that tie us down. There's one of the big ones now out there is that very few people realize is insurance. I mean, this goes right along with admiralty law. And insurance, even your home insurance or your auto insurance, all these are contractual in nature and tie us in. There's just so many ways. And yet the silence part is, if they offer something and then you take the benefits, then you're in.
Right.
And you can deny that or fight it all you want to, but the facts speak louder than words.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where they always come back and get you.
Lawrence, LB,
Mm-hmm.
we have another person on the line. This is Tony. Tony, your mic is open.
Oh, hi, Dee. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hey, Tony.
Hi, friends. How's it been going?
Hey, welcome in.
Thanks. I just wanted to ask a couple of questions, really. I heard what happened with Peter and Kate a moment ago. I just wanted to ask a couple of basic, real simple questions, if that would be okay, gentlemen.
LB?
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
How one of the first things really is how do you guys think, or what do you understand as to how the human being himself basically got enrolled into a system of slavery? Because that principally is what it comes down to. If we are paying taxes and paying, money for this and money for that and money for the other, I mean, how if it's not through any kind of birth certificate, how do you understand that this has happened, and why, if you believe a name is not a slavery bond into the system itself, I'm really not following how you think the system could exist without its slaves. So I just wondered if you guys could comment on that, please.
You're talking about probably just general principles of how someone's brought into the sheepfold of a society by birth or whatever. The birth certificate, they play games with that, but basically, I've seen some evidence of what these people say about the birth certificate issues, but it's unconscionable for them to do something that would be totally against the Constitution, which is involuntary servitude or chattel ownership of men and women under the 13th Amendment. So if they are in fact doing that, it's void on its ab initio from inception based on constitutional principles, because they can't do it. So
okay.
The birth certificate itself is just, before the Civil War, they didn't even have birth certificates. People, registered births in Bibles and things of that sort. So the birth certificate today, they play games, but they're legal fictions. And the law always trumps anything. The law never sleeps. That's a maxim. So it sometimes sleeps, but is never overcome, rather. I'm paraphrasing what the maxim is. So all these things are basically legal fictions, which are presumptions made by legal processes or what the system implies or imposes. And the law can overcome these legal principles. And that's what this, our status correction process is meant to do, is to get rid of all these things, so there's no nexus to you and these legal pitfalls that exist.
You see, this is where the
14th Amendment system.
Okay. Well, this is where some of the confusion comes in, you see, because there's probably about 8 or 9 points there that you've covered, not one of which I've been able to comment on. The basics, really, to start with, was that how did we get enrolled into this legal fiction system without a birth certificate bond? Or
without a birth certificate?
Yeah, but this is my point. If the birth certificate bond is not a ticket into bondage, by words, by deed, by action, by legal, by fiction, by whatever, what is it? Why is it there? Why is it important? And what the heck has it got to do with this whole legal system if it's not relevant?
Well, like I just stated, it's unconscionable if they are doing that, and there's been no direct evidence that they do that. There's theories or stories out there that they do it, but
that's three. They're all different points.
That's what one of the things I attack is that they can't do what they've done, and you reject it and protest it, and it kills it. I don't know if you've ever heard the term civilly dead. Civilly dead is a term that if someone the court could take your civil rights away, for example, and it makes you civilly dead. That's basically what we do is kill. We personally kill the civil man that we've created.
This is all law that trumps all this commercial law. 12 already, and you haven't answered the first one yet. It's been skipping from one to the other to the other to the other, and that's not making sense of any sensible argument. What we need to do, I asked a simple question, is the birth certificate a bond into the system? Does it have a national insurance number? Does it have a QSIT number? Does it have a number on the birth certificate? Does it have a name? What is the name? How does the name apply to the fiction? And how does that name apply to a fictional corporation, i.e. the name in capital letters on the birth certificate? And why is that relative to a
I really don't care about. I don't care about all that stuff.
You should.
Because it's all unconscionable.
No, you're a living being.
What?
You are a living being, are you not, sir? Or are you just purely on this earth as a corporation?
People aren't corporations.
Look, okay, we can banter around the word of person, personages, corporation, all the rest of it. The point is, do you, when you slap yourself in the face in the morning with a bit of aftershave, is that a human thing? Is that you, or is that a corporation?
I just said people are not corporations. It's all in my book, okay? I've written extensively about all this stuff. It's on the web. And like I said a few minutes ago to these other guys, there's been so much disinformation out there, I'm getting tired of talking about it.
LB.
Okay, well, what I tend to do from my perspective is understand two things about a human being. One is my thought process and my consciousness of myself is spiritual. Two, if I slap myself in the arm, on the face, whatever, this is a physical manifestation of the same entity. So to separate the two, one into a corporation, stamp it with a birth certificate. That's the physical bit.
Yeah, well, I don't even want to talk about this, okay? It's nonsense. People, I'm going to say it one more time, people are not corporations. Did you hear that?
Okay.
Read my book.
Get my book. Either.
Read my book. Understand this. You're pissing me off.
Yeah.
Jose has another question. Jose.
No, I was just going to make a comment.
See, this is why this movement is so screwed up, and people like that have got to get their mind an enema, because everyone is so messed up out there from disinformation and bad information. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I wonder if these people are just not here to antagonize and confuse things. Because I can't believe people are this dense, really. If I just told them 3 times that people are not corporations. And he doesn't know. So that's an antagonizer.
Exactly,
He's probably
and it's your birth
plant. I don't deal with gray area. I don't deal with gray area anymore. You're either going to get it and want to get it, or you're a plant.
Capital letters.
That's what I told this my attorney that I sued a public defender once for malpractice, and I go, either your client, to his attorney, either your client's in conspiracy with the state to violate my rights, or he is incompetent. Take your pick. I don't do gray area.
Mm. Jose, you were going to make a comment?
Yeah, go ahead, Jose.
If I can field this one for you, LB. Okay. The thing that people are not understanding is that they're not looking at the birth certificate and the certificates of live birth from an agricultural point of view. Having been a rancher, I can tell you that a birth certificate has absolutely no value. It is not any type of a real bond. The only way it bonds anything is from the seller to the buyer. I have sold many horses and many cattle that were papered, they were registered, they were pedigreed animals. So if you want to see a birth certificate from any type of point of view, you have to look at it from the pedigree point of view. That's all it stands for. That's it.
Yep. No, it's just a certificate that acknowledges birth. And they do play some games with the birth certificates in regard to, mother, father, and things of that nature. That gets down to, principles of law.
I'm trying to find the interference. I'm looking for the interference, guys. I'm not sure where it's coming from.
What, that music?
I don't know. I'm looking for the interference right now. I'm trying to locate it. And I'm not seeing anything open yet.
See, this is all the adversary can do is
I'm trying to find where the interference is going. I'll tell you what, guys. Let's go ahead and obviously it's gone. Okay. All right.
Who's laughing?
Yeah, somebody.
You, Jose?
Yeah, that's me. Somebody didn't like what I was saying.
Well,
yeah,
no,
I was trying to find it, and I'm going through everything. I was looking for it, but I wasn't seeing it.
See, when you cut these guys to the quick like that, that's all they can do is do childish, stupid things.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been dealing with this for 10 years, and it I'm over it. This movement's messed up, and it's just ridiculous.
All right. Jose, if you want to go ahead and carry it for a moment, I'll be right back.
Sure.
Okay.
No, I was just thinking, it's amazing how much people have read into all this nonsensical extra laws like the bond codes, the UCC codes, the state codes, and the federal codes.
I'm telling you, it's disinformation. That it's been fed to them by disinformation agents, and they've glommed onto it hung on to it like it's a religion, and they'll argue it to the death. Yeah. it's just hilarious.
Yeah, that's why I enjoyed doing all the research on all of it. I see it for what it is. It's all bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. I knew it was bullshit 15 years ago when we started seeing it crop up a little bit, but it's been epidemic the last 10 years. It's just a cancer, and they won't let go. So
they don't see that the top laws start with the Constitution, and that the codification of the Constitution is the statutes at large, which are senior to all the codes.
Sure.
What they're doing, they're down here at the bottom playing with all the codes. You know, they're playing in the codes, the rules, the regulations, staying inside the box, let's say.
Right, exactly.
When what they should be doing is working up here above all that in the statutes at large and in the Constitution.
Well, even the statutes, I could go over in the Red Amendment. I'd taken statutory construction concepts out of Bovier's Law Dictionary and gave people a starting point to analyze statutes and are they private law, public law, special law, things of that nature. They might not even apply to a U.S. citizen, for example. So each statute's got its special purpose. So that's, I teach all these things. I've learned all these things over the past 20 years. I've been a criminal case I won. I've known the best. I had corresponded with Tupper Saucy, who did go to prison for income tax problems. Mm-hmm. A good man. He wrote Rulers of Evil, which I recommend everyone read. So I've been around. I know some of the best people that have researched out there. So this Patriot movement is just a joke. It's a mess because of the Internet, basically. And it's got to get straightened around, and I've been trying to get people on board for 10 years now. So I'm glad there's some people like you out there that understand the mess we're in.
Right. LB, Jose, we have a caller, Greg, from, I believe he said Lake Michigan. Greg, your mic is open.
Good evening, everybody. LB, very good to talk to you. Hope everything's going well tonight. Yeah, this has always been a very interesting and sometimes volatile conversation when it comes to people that have, dyed-in-the-wool ideas about any particular thing. I think what's really important for us all to recognize, and forgive me for the quick preface, is that I take the Sergeant Schultz approach. I know nothing. I just know how to ask lots of questions. And today, this might be the right answer, and by tomorrow, it might be a different one. And as long as I'm flexible and stay open-minded to learning, I'm not going to be in as bad a position as if I decide to etch myself into concrete and be stuck in one viewpoint or mindset. Well, with that said, just a little bit of the background of where I come from.
Well, let me say that there are no stupid questions, just stupid people. So go ahead.
Boy.
Well, I'm a little bit kinder than that. Maybe, I guess there's a lot of people are very upset, and I guess looking at the Patriot movement and everything else, we call it the Patriot movement because somebody in the media called it that. I don't remember ever somebody calling it that.
I call it the Hall movement. But, yeah.
Well, I call it the I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore movement, like from the old movie Network. And that's a good thing. The problem is that when the government, who wants to keep their power, sees that, they also seize upon it and put their own agents provocateur out into the movement so that they can steer it where they want it to go.
Correct. Yeah.
All these bad people, you have all these people follow the wrong leaders, follow the wrong advice, end up in jail or at least getting fined, and then everybody's tail goes between their legs and they go back to being good slaves. And that's how it happens over and over again. And all you have to do is say boo. You just tell me why is it possible that 1/10 of 1/100th of 1% of all the people in this country, in this union of 50 countries, can run everybody else ragged? I mean, by now you would think if they really knew what was going on, there'd be pickup trucks with good old boys and shotguns heading to D.C., and it would have been over. I mean, hell, even Thomas Edison predicted that was going to come down. You know? And I don't have a lot of love for Tom Edison because he was a thief, but he was a shrewd businessman. And he saw the error in their way, took what he could, and got the hell out. But anyway, the question that I had for you, LB, is let's just pretend for a New York minute that there's 20 people out there that are also mad as hell and don't want to take it anymore. They've never had any background. They have no preconceived notions, and they would love to hear, a 3 to 10 point outline of the things that you ought to do and maybe 2 or 3 things that you ought to never do. And I was wondering if you could share your thoughts on that.
3 things to do and 3 things to never do?
Yeah, in the process of, altering your status, getting yourself back to where you're supposed to be. Obviously, they have to go read a lot. They have to study a lot. They have to pretty much become alienated from their friends and family.
Yeah, that's the big one. That's the problem. The reindeer game issue.
Yeah.
And it is pretty lonely being out of the system. And that's why I'm trying to get the society together. I guess, I don't know, 3 things positive, 3 things negative for not to do. I don't know.
What are the what's step one?
Everyone being an island is a big no-no. I've been fighting with that for years. I guess read my book if you want to learn how to do it right and learn the do's and don'ts.
LB,
so that people would want to go read your book. Can you give us a couple teasers?
It's not a simple fix, I've joked about putting a website up with a, click here to solve all your problems, and I have a, some kind of joke on when they click on it. So you're kidding, right? When they click on the.
Well, that's the thing. It's taken hundreds of years now to get to this point where people are finally waking up and realizing that there is a serious problem, and they're tired of it. They're mad as hell, and they don't want to take it anymore. But there is no quick fix, no easy fix, at least, until enough people realize what the real problem is and what the real cause of it is, and say, well, yeah, we're going to do this. Hundreds and hundreds of years ago, when the Earth was flat, the first few guys that came out there and started talking about, hey, the Earth isn't flat. It's actually round. We're not the center of the universe. The sun is of ours. And it was not only very lonely, it was very dangerous for them because a lot of those people got killed. But gradually, we finally did reach that 100th monkey syndrome process, like you mentioned, LB, and it wasn't a lonely island anymore for those people. And that's what we got to do here. But you can't get there by snapping your fingers or wishing it. It's going to take personal responsibility and getting sick and tired of it enough, and then realizing the law behind this and where the fact of the contract comes into play on all this, and dealing with it in a right way.
Yeah, I talked to a woman yesterday. She's been with PAC for 3 years, and she got involved with this. Your Remedy is in the law group, and she said she paid the money. The guy that runs the thing is a shyster. I've talked to several people that know about him. I'm not going to mention his name, but after she said she got in there was like 30 people that you can get their wares from, and each one selling a different program. I mean, talk about a mess. And this guy that's selling this thing that you pay the fee for is making a commission off all these people. It's just ridiculous. So I guess I can tell you what not to do. There's a big list of things to do there. Don't get involved with people like that. I've been trying to get state national society together. I started PAC Alliance a couple years ago, which is very broad-brushed. It's getting people that even can't get out of the system together to start working together. because
right.
until people start working together and eliminate these stupid ideas, disinformation, and shysters, we're never going to get anywhere.
Right.
And the adversary loves it. You know, I can imagine they sit back in their smoke-filled rooms every night and laugh their ass off at this movement.
Right.
Yeah, right.
All right. Well, guys, we are out of time for tonight. Tomorrow night, Jose has graciously accepted to co-host, and this will be a first for both of us. We've not really spoken before, but LB will be back with us. Lawrence, you are more than welcome to be here with us.
Well,
but we are out of time tonight, and I want to say thank you, LB, and Lawrence,
sure.
and Jose, and Greg, and other callers for at least calling in. At least we know you're out there. So with that, we're just going to go ahead and say goodnight for tonight and end out with a little bit of Bridge Over Troubled Waters. God bless and peace and love to all until we meet again.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
People think they're doing their patriotic duty by, paying their income taxes. Of course, I've learned a lot, in the last 20 years. So that's probably. I just look at it as there's deeper issues than that, So I came in from this at a different angle than most people. Is what I'm trying to get across.
Right. I understand. Well, like I said, I know there's people here in the chat room, but maybe you could also give us a little bit more. I know that you've been involved in a lot of things. I know that you've had to change a lot of your lifestyle and the way you live in order to live the life outside of the corporation, I guess, is the best way I can say it for our listeners. Maybe you could go into a little bit of that also.
I don't know what's really changed. I don't fill out government forms anymore, and I don't, I get to do what I want. I'm not 9 to 5 anymore. Don't have to worry about things, but of course, I back off the materialism a little bit, of course, too, because I don't make as much as I used to, which was all our hamster wheel game anyway, is because a lot of people are just spending every waking hour working and paying it out in, bank fees and things like that, taxes.
Right, I hear you.
So,
I
don't know. I'm a lot less stressed than I used to be. The thing that stresses me out lately are the people in this so-called movement.
Right. Yeah. What was
the government doesn't bother me. It's the people.
What was that, Lawrence? I heard you there in the background.
I was just commenting on LB's deal about the way it's just more and more the people on a wheel. It's just an ever increasing larger and larger spiral of as far as time-wise, speed. The increasing infringements, the increasing urgency to try to find money because it's becoming more and more scarce, less and less available. And, of course, there's reasons for that, which I won't go into, but I do totally agree with LB, yeah.
Right. LB, I know you said that the Second Amendment is what got you started on your search for knowledge and doing research and all. What specifically led you to the 14th in particular, since that is what the book is about that you've written?
It was a pretty long, not too long of venture, basically. You know, there were a lot of people like William Cooper. I don't know if any people know his name, but he wrote "Behold a Pale Horse."
Right.
And he came out with his book. I think it was 1992, and I knew of those people at that time.
Mm-hmm.
I did correspond with William Cooper back in the late 90s. You know, when he started to get into law issues more so than he was earlier on in the 90s. But I guess what brought me to the 14th is a group I was with in Phoenix, Arizona in the early 90s. That's where I was then. And we were toying with the voting issue and trying to get back to what they call the qualified elector status. But, you know, after I had done my research, I found out that it was pretty much a farce. And basically what we did back then is experiment and try to get registered with the voter registration board in Maricopa County Register as state citizens. A lot of people might know that terminology, which I don't believe exists right now in the pre-14th Amendment form. They really don't exist. But the reason why is because back in 94 or when we got this done, I think it was like 95, I can't remember dates. And I still have the list of people that were on that list in my file cabinet. We did get registered as state citizens, but a month later, the Attorney General of Arizona came back and told the board that you had to be a citizen of the United States or a U.S. citizen to be registered. So that put an end to that. So that's, I guess, what got me interested in, you know, experimenting or finding out more about the 14th Amendment at that time.
Right,
so that was even that mandatory way back then. Wow.
Well, it was, of course, it was, you know, 100 years plus after the 14th Amendment was put in place. So, but, you know, there's all kinds of, even back then the movement was still young to a point, but, you know, we're talking 20 years, 30 years that the 14th Amendment was in place, and a lot of people say it was progressive. A lot of the things were progressive in what happened with it in law, but as far as I'm concerned, it happened the day they put it on the books. You know, everything did. You know, they just toyed with it for a while. And, of course, it was a slow implementation of what they used.
Right, absolutely. Everything that's come since then with detrimental results as far as liberty and freedom and the destruction it's interactive, you know. It's like you're in there with it, learning, and it involves you, and it's just amazing to me. That is an amazing piece of work you put together there with that piece on the matrix.
Oh yeah,
I love that.
Hey, LB, real quick, sorry to interrupt here, but a couple more comments from the chat room. One of our listeners says that he has spoken with you once on the phone, and he forgot to tell you thank you for finding all of this and putting it into an understandable form.
Now,
and
I try. A lot of people still don't understand it, which is unfortunate. I think the ones that don't want to, you know. They're afraid of it.
Okay. Right. I hear you.
I'm sorry.
Okay,
I'm sorry. I cut you off. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Go ahead.
No, you weren't finished. I'm done.
Okay. And now we have another comment or question from the chat room. It says, okay, he says, I want to just cut to the chase. Do U.S. citizens have any rights at all? He says, I hate to be blunt or, but LB makes so few talking engagements that he really wants to pick his brain about it.
Well, U.S. citizens have the rights the government gives them or lets them have.
Right.
It's hard to access natural rights with being in the system.
Right. It's pretty much all privileges. It's not real rights.
Yeah. Yeah, they call
Right.
rights privileges or privileges rights, which, when I was in my own case back in 95, 94, 95, around that time frame. And, I was just learning with this group down there, and after I got interested, in the early 90s, like 92, in the Second Amendment issues, it blossomed pretty quick from there. Working with this group, and I'm lucky I ran into him because I had my own case that I had to handle. It was, criminal. And, the judges just jerk around, and I was just agreeing at that time. And, we were learning about counsel compared to attorneys or, assistants at counsel based on constitutional principles as compared to bar attorneys. And, the judge told me one day, well, we use those words interchangeably. So they use a lot of words interchangeably, which to cause deception. But the terms in law are all different. And it's, I've learned a lot about the context in which they're used. That's how I figured out Section 2 of the 14th Amendment.
Absolutely.
Being a crime to vote. And the words, the historians really messed up. They were thinking that the Section 2 of the 14th Amendment was just an extension of the, which is one of
rights and all these things. They're all founded in, they're progressive, like you said. They're founded and based upon that, the fact of what happened with the 14th. They're built upon it. Yeah.
Yeah, they couldn't do what they've done without the 14th. People, talk about the 16th Amendment, which is the Income Tax Amendment, and, the Senator Amendment, which I believe is the 17th without looking, the ones that put the election of the senators from the state legislatures to the people, or citizens,
LB, you have a question in the chat room that asked if what the state attorney general had said. Was that what your big clue was?
Yeah, of course it was the starting point of where I started my thinking or doing research. It wasn't until like 4 years later until I wrote the book, or 5 years later. It took that long to do a lot of research and come to the understanding that the governments weren't lawful.
Right. Yeah, that question came from a person in the chat room who has just recently received his copy of the Red Amendment. And so he's just getting started on it. I think he received it about the beginning of last week.
Yeah, people have read it as many as 5 times, and they still find more information. So the first read-through is pretty, I don't know, you'll probably, I just had someone get a copy about a month ago that's in our Facebook group that said he had to put it down after 10 pages because his head was spinning.
No doubt. Well, I know for me, if I hadn't wasn't already aware of so much that's in your book, it would have been, mind-blowing for me. As it was, the additional things that I was not aware of that you brought out, specifics and details and facts that, it really rounded out what I had gathered on my own was just really amazing to me. And it was just a wonderful thing to see all that finally, the rest of the puzzles, the rest of the pieces of the puzzle that filled it all out. So, but
there's a lot of people that say they've known this and that, but the book puts everything together, even though they've learned some things, like you just said, Lawrence. But a lot of people don't realize that PAC, a lot of the information out there in this movement right now, the proper information that's been tainted by a lot of groups has come from PAC. And we were the first ones to take the Matrix and put the real life spin on it with deprogramming, which is deprogram.us website. That's been on the web for 12 years.
Wow. Speaking of that, matrix thing that you have up there on pack, that just amazed me. That is so well done. It's so educational. If anybody
Welcome to Freedom Reigns. This is Deatra, and you all know I don't do too many shows anymore, but we have a very, very special guest with us tonight. We have Mr. LB Bork with us, the author of The Red Amendment and the founder of PAC. Tonight I also have a special co-host with me, who you guys are somewhat familiar with, and that will be Lawrence Gilbert with the Regal Exchange. So welcome, Lawrence, and LB, are you there?
I think I'm here.
You are. Hello, welcome.
Sometimes my equipment fails.
Well, welcome,
It's user fault, though.
Oh, okay.
Hello, LB.
No.
Hi, Lawrence. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Doing good.
Awesome. Well, LB, I have been following PAC for pretty close to 3 years now, and have read over your Red Amendment, and we've had several discussions, and of course, every Thursday we have a PAC education show, and anyways, we have several people in the chat room who have also received and read or are reading the Red Amendment. And so I'm hoping that they will have some questions for you. But I was kind of wanting to find out from you, what exactly was it that brought you into the research that you have done?
I think originally, it was the Second Amendment issues. I wanted to know why people had to give up so many rights to own guns. It seemed like the Second Amendment, in layman's terms, basically was clear that the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, and I looked at it, every law that they had on guns as an infringement. So that's what really got me started. And then I found out most of the people in the movement, excuse my bluntness, got into this freedom movement back in the 90s because they didn't want to pay their income tax, which was greedy to me. Didn't have to do with natural rights. They were just not willing to pay their fair share. Of course, from there, we all know that after I had done the research, it was much deeper than that. But most of the good